And you have broken many on so many different levels. And so we're going to be taking this opportunity to talk about Indigenous representation, scaling success, which you clearly have done, and sustainable beauty. So it is my pleasure and honor to introduce our guest today, Jenn Harper, who is the visionary founder of Cheekbone Beauty. Jenn's journey is one of resilience, purpose, and innovation. She has redefined what it means to be a social entrepreneur and an established Indigenous representation within the beauty industry. All of that while maintaining a deep commitment to sustainability. Her work has made waves not only in Canada, but globally, as she has challenged industry norms and has created a legacy that is grounded in positive impact. In today's conversation, we shall explore her path to scaling Cheekbone Beauty, the importance of representation, her commitment to environmental responsibility, and thank you so much for being here today, Jenn. It's just an honor. I happen to have had the pleasure of watching you on a live stream with Julie Cole, and then we connected after that because I was just so blown away by that live stream. And so I'm just so honored that you are here with us today. So yeah, so your journey of making Cheekbone Beauty from an idea, a dream that you had that you talk about, a dream of little girls uh, with lip gloss, I think it was.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, and so you that dream, you actually had a dream while you were sleeping, and so you had an idea and you made it a reality, which is so incredible. So since beauty is a very personal thing, let's start with your personal journey. When did you first discover the idea of beauty and your mission to begin Cheekbone Beauty?
Yeah, so I've always been a lover of beauty products. I'm just remember as a little girl always admiring that aisle in Shoppers Drug Mart and being, I think, obsessed with magazines. I used to like collect them and go through them and save all like the samples that we used to get in magazines and sniff all the things that were in there. So it's something that I've always admired. But the path to, I think, entering this space is really, um, it was a huge transition from what my previous career was. I worked for a company called All Seas Fisheries, and they're based in Etobicoke, and I was a sales
Oh,
rep essentially for them for 8 years. And prior to that, I was with Cisco, which is broadline food distribution, so every category in the food space. Then moved on to seafood, and then before that, I was in the hospitality industry, so like boutique style hotels in the Niagara region. Lots of like incredible. I worked at In on the 20, which is it now they're owned by a different company, but it was family owned, and they also owned Cave Springs, and so always obsessed with, I think, the detail. When I think of all the things that has really helped build Cheekbone, I remember Helen Young, who owned that company at the time, just always saying she'd never met anyone who paid as much attention to detail as I did, as just like
mhm.
someone who was their catering manager. I always think that those things are super important. And I know we bring that into the brand today, but so it was an actual, like, legit pop out of bed, middle of the night dream, January 2015. And it's three native little girls covered in lip gloss. And it's so funny because you go look back, and I don't know how I knew it was lip gloss, but in my dream, that's what it was. And what was really powerful and moving about that dream was one, I don't usually remember a lot of dreams I have.
Mhm.
So they say we dream all the time. I remember very few. A scary dream about the rope man when I was 7, and now these three native little girls. And so when I woke up, I grabbed my laptop and I just wrote down like I want to figure out how to make this lip gloss and then use a portion of the profits to do something to support my Indigenous community. And so I think to get a full sense of like why, like who would be selling fish and this would be the next. So I was newly sober. I've been very open about sharing this. Like November 26th, 2014, I got sober. So this year I celebrate 10 years. Super excited about that. But 2 months later, is when this dream happens, and I call it like life changing because it has literally changed my life. But also, 2015 is the first year when the Truth and Reconciliation final reports were released. And so
Mm,
I'm 38 years old at the time, a Canadian Ojibwe woman. And I like am dumbfounded, like most of the country, like my circle of friends. I'm the only Indigenous person in my circle of friends. And we are all shocked. Like I had no idea. And then I start to learn that like this is what both of my grandparents survived. And I used to think I just had this super dysfunctional, messed up family, and really recognized very quickly that this isn't just my family. This is a thing called trauma, generational trauma. It's passed down from generation where, my grandmother left that residential school system extremely scarred and damaged.
mm,
It goes on to have 8 kids, which she just is not equipped to handle or raise, nor should she ever have been. She was taken from our community at 6 and forced to live in that residential school till she was 16, and like beaten if she spoke, or like just all the horrible things that we now know about it are in fact true. And everything I've learned about her and her life has come from my aunties and my uncles and my dad, because she died before I ever had a real strong relationship with her. When I was little, I remember meeting her a select few times. And obviously, I think as every person does meet your family, there's always just those special things about them. And I remember not realizing how short she was at the time because I was little myself. But now I'm always empowered by understanding her journey and her story, and what women have literally through, from continent after continent, from community, from culture, what we have had to survive to like exist. It's pretty insane. And I think that's the power of women. And she's 4'11" and left the residential school system, never forgot our language. My entire family speaks Anishinaabe fluently, which is the language of the Ojibwe people, and to the point where my uncle Gabe is a professor of Anishinaabe at the University of Minnesota. And so I take these bits of my history and my family's story to really empower this journey. And so I've learned all of these things, and then now I have this dream, and I'm trying to figure out, how to get into the beauty industry. And it turns out, because of globalization and things called private white label, that this wouldn't be as challenging as one might think. I Googled, of course, how to make a lip gloss. I am married to someone in pharmaceuticals, in compliance and regulatory, so making products in my kitchen would never have been allowed no matter what. So that wasn't going to happen. I hear so many people, other founded stories is like they started to make it at home. Like my husband would never ever allow that. And now I recognize why and how gross that actually really is. But anyway, that's a whole nother side topic. And so found some manufacturers, literally one in the Toronto area. They've been in business for many years. Bought some of their products, took a picture with my phone, and launched our like e-commerce store in November 2016. So 2 years into my sobriety journey, and just like Cheekbone Beauty has absolutely changed my life. I feel so lucky and honored and blessed that every single day I get to wake up and, you got to have a job, right? And as hard as entrepreneurship is, I would choose this over working for anyone ever again. But who knows, like business is business. This might not work as much as I want it to. We're in a space that we're trying to build a beauty brand that's has a social impact lead based on sustainability, which when we do the math and look at the data, no one really actually cares about as much as we all say we do care about sustainability. And we're in an economy right now where, yeah, people are buying things based on price, unfortunately. And that's, I think, the situation we find in this capitalistic world is that those are what dictates our decisions. But we're in this movement. We hope to change the mindset and really get people to recognize, all of the work that we've done with the brand. It's my culture. Like every beautiful part of being Anishinaabe, we've brought and developed into the brand, to the point of building our own lab and our headquarters at our headquarters in St. Catharines, and really embedding this concept of like ancient wisdom married with Western science, and what can we do? And I really believe Indigenous people are the OJs of sustainability. I've said that numerous times, and I believe it's because they look to nature and they really honor and respect every aspect of nature. We literally are in relationship with everything, and that's all living things. You know, once I have this moment with all of you, I am now in relationship with all of you, and we are connected
Mm.
for the rest of our lives. And that's, these are just cultural teachings that we've put into the sort of the bed of this brand. And as long as I'm at the helm, we will always make it this way. And I think this is just a unique position in the beauty space. No one's ever done this before. We're now in 70 Sephora Canada locations and 148 JCPenney locations in the United States. And
Mm.
Sephora, who's the biggest beauty retailer in the world, has never worked with an Indigenous brand anywhere in this planet. And we hope to teach them something, and we hope to teach the industry something. But again, we're in an enormously small player in the space. But I really believe in the depths of my heart that this is something that's necessary for our planet at the moment, and people and human, like, when we fix things, whether it's us as humans, that in turn is then going to fix and be and help heal and repair the planet. And all have to start with ourselves. And unfortunately, as a brand, it's like, yes, start building like you have to build you and heal you first, and then we're going to work on all these healing things, because we live in these systems that have been built from generation after generation that are just not working and are extractive without thinking of regenerative healing. And those are really important aspects of how we're going to repair things. But again, you have to have hope, right?
Mm. Wow. Absolutely do. And
I hope
I
that
would,
wasn't too much information.
no, no, I think everyone's riveted by it. I mean, I personally am. And, we had a lot of people register just because they're so inspired by your story. So, and I just want to say that, we were direct messaging each other when I first got introduced to you through Julie Cole in the live stream that you did with her. And I'd like to share that I am now almost 9 months alcohol free. And
Oh,
it was so
beautiful.
nice to be able to share, like, just to kind of compare notes a little bit, because I found it really inspiring that you said that publicly. And so it gave me the courage to feel comfortable sharing that information in a public way, because I think there's a lot of people that are struggling with that and don't know and worry about the stigma. And so, hearing you do that made me go, you know what, if she can do it, I can do it. And you're very kind and encouraging in our little message exchange. So congratulations on 10 years, or coming up on 10
Thank you.
years.
Yeah, it is.
That's amazing.
It's a big deal. And I don't like, I know this sort of addiction touches all of our lives, possibly in different ways. You know, there's
Mhm.
we've always heard the story of the family member that has the problem, and it is a serious problem. And it's, addiction isn't something, that someone chooses. It's a real disease. And I'm so grateful to be alive. I feel like if I did not get sober, I would not be here today. Like, my addiction was really powerful, and it's almost this interesting part of like why Cheekbone is still here and why Cheekbone's been successful. I think in our lives, when we overcome something, it's really interesting how it empowers you to do something else. And so, and I'm no longer ashamed of it. And I feel like that's such a big part of my role. I don't do AA, but I know one of the 12 steps, the last one, is always about being in service. And I really believe that as human beings, the more we are here to serve other people, it actually is so much more beneficial to your own life. And once you start that pattern, you see that and feel that. And it's almost in this weird, selfish way. It's like, oh, the more giving I am, it's like you do get so much more back. And it's not a materialistic thing. It's just in like this inner feeling of goodness. And it's really powerful that when you do share and try to support somebody who is in any way, it's super helpful.
Oh yeah, and so you were that catalyst for me, and so I came out public shortly after that and interviewed someone who runs a sober community who supported me. So there you go. It's the ripple
Amazing.
effect. Yes, yes. Um, so we have some comments that are coming up. Pranav, do you mind reading out some of the comments that are showing up in the feed? I think you're getting some Zoom love.
Oh, for sure. I think it's from Helen before. She said that she's tried Jen's products before and she loved it. and
Oh,
really
thank you,
excited for
Colin.
Jen. Natalie said that again, great products, great mission, and great customer service.
Yay.
Uh, they're congratulating you guys on completing Jen completing 10 years and Lee completing 9 months. Congratulations, you guys. And I think I see a few introductions and few links
Great.
for connecting. If you
Okay,
guys want to connect, you
excellent.
guys can put in your LinkedIn on in the comments and everybody can connect with each other.
That's a great idea. I love it. Thank you for that, Pranav. Pranav is my IT expert here and a past student. So I'm really honored to have him on the call with us, along with Sukriti, who's also a past student of mine and his interning with me. So I'm very lucky to have such a supportive community. I also have Jan on the call, who is from Captains and Poets, and Jan Frolic, and she used to work for Women of Influence, and so she
Oh, very
was
cool.
very thrilled and excited to see that you were going to be on here today. So we're really lucky to have Jan as our leadership expert here on the call today. So we've talked about your story, and there's a lot that goes with building a brand. It's not always glamorous, as I'm sure you can attest to. Building a brand comes with a lot of personal sacrifices. Were there any particular tough moments that made you question your path, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of sacrifices. I think time is the biggest one, right? And it's a choice of who and how you're spending your time. My children were older, so I feel like I was fortunate. I often look at young moms who are entrepreneurs or who have little ones, and I just remember having little children, and I don't know how that's even possible. So you definitely would need an incredible support system. So my kids were 8 and 12 when I started Cheekbone, and I feel like the work that I would be, or the time that I would be sacrificing was when they were in bed, right? Like I'm working my day job. I would work at this at nights and on the weekends when I could, but it would be like have dinner with everyone, have the family time, and then by like 8 o'clock, I was back working on the business and up until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So the time I was sacrificing in the early days was definitely a lot of sleep for sure. And then as I've aged, I've recognized the how important sleep is. So it's one of those things that I try not to sacrifice anymore. Like you definitely need sleep. Sleep is like, and any study on the brain, you recognize like that you need to be alert and efficient. And sleep is when our pathways are all being reconnected and healed and getting rid of the things we don't need and keeping all this stuff. So sleep is critical, eating healthy. You know what? It's been really interesting. I think if it wasn't for sobriety, I probably this would have been way more damaging. But because I was on this healing journey as I was building Cheekbone, I was really dedicated to my plan, my system. So for me, it's waking up, it's prayer, meditation, and physical fitness immediately every day, and water. Like those are non-negotiables. So now, so matter how much traveling I'm doing, wherever I am, that's how I start my day every single day. And I got some great advice early on in building Cheekbone that I should always be working harder on me than I am on the business, because if we're not um, whole and healed, we can't come to the table with our best selves. And so that is just part of my plan and my routine. And I have such a like my kids now don't really want to spend that much time with me, which is good for work, but not for me. Like I've had you like we now kind of live in different places, and I've never in my life have I had like Saturday evening where you're like all alone, and this is starting to happen to me at 48, and I'm like, what do I do with this time, this free time? So I have a lot of trying to spend more time with friends that I one thing I have ignored and did a really bad job of over the years is I don't have a lot of friendships that like they're still there, and I think they understand, like they just know how hard and busy this is, but that's the major sacrifice I did make, is that time with friends and dinners with friends and all those sorts of things. It also, is part of when you're raising a family. I think that's part of it as well, that you do spend less time with friends. But there's a lot of sacrifices you definitely make. Now at this moment in Cheekbone, I do a lot of traveling, and that's exhausting. Like it's absolutely exhausting. I used to think people that got to travel for work, that there was some glamour to that. It is not at all. It's just a horrible experience. And it's like you're all there to show up for like 1 hour and then you're back at the so it's not like, even if you get to go to places that you've wanted to go, it's not like you're experiencing that with your with my husband or my right where I'd want to be in that city or that area doing that thing. So now it's that kind of sacrifice, but we've really tried to be a lot more strategic as we're growing the business, of what places I'm going and where I'm going and spending the time too. You get better at that.
Yeah, you learn those hacks. I get that. I totally relate to that. I think we all have stories of, especially when we first start our business, trying to hide away in a quiet space. I remember taking a really important sponsorship call in a boiler room in my basement and being like, "Oh, am I ever going to get through all of this? Is my life ever going to seem sane?" And yeah, but I'm with you in making sure that I protect my self-care, because if you don't take care of yourself and you're not there for yourself, you can't be there for others. And so my poet, as Jan and I talk about our captains and our poet, we have to own our captain and our poet. And so my poet calls out to me to honor myself. So when we move along our journeys, uh, you often become a role model. And for me, I see you as a role model for resilience and empowerment, especially for Indigenous youth. What advice do you give to young people who are facing systemic barriers?
Yeah, I think I give the same advice to everyone, because I feel like I have not paid attention to the barriers, even though we know that they're there in some cases. Because I think if I did, I would find that really discouraging. So, I always try to, whether it's being a woman founder, being an Indigenous founder, I'm just really focusing on that this is the business that I'm trying to build, and not focusing on any parts of it that would become a barrier, because I think that would be really detrimental to me as I'm trying to do it. So I don't focus on it. I give the advice that if we are consistent and continue to grow, and not giving up is really how something becomes successful. I've really just recognized it's almost like whoever can stand this the longest is the ones that are going to succeed, right? Like it's literally a matter of endurance. It just truly is. It's like just a great analogy, I think, for so many things that come our way in life. And it's really what you can handle, how you can pivot, how you can make really scrappy choices should you have to, based on the economy. Like there's just all kinds of things, but when you are in business, it's really a matter of endurance and stamina. And I really share that with young folks, that like only way this ends, or this thing ends, is when they decide to give up on it, right? And that it's also sharing that there's nothing wrong with deciding that maybe the thing that you no longer are for it, and you discover also that it might not work because of certain situations or scenarios, and that there's no shame in that as well, right? I think sometimes people hold on to a business or an idea too long, and because of our egos maybe, and just really letting go of those things. But if you are for this and you still have that burning in your belly, and you know this is going to work, and you're getting the signs, because there's a lot of signs along the way of whether something's working or not. sales is obviously number one. And then also the feedback, right? And people being really honest about like, there's just something, we will hear this, or like, there's really something unique about this brand. There's no way that like it should not succeed, right? Even though when we're having struggles, whether it's with the few years of the e-commerce space or retail partnerships, they're just like, so we know there's something good there, and we know the products are great from the feedback that we also get from customers. So it's about understanding if you still have everything that it takes. It's that consistency, and I think consistency is underrated sometimes.
Oh my gosh, is it ever? Half the battle is just showing up, right? If you're
Hmm.
studying, you're doing anything, you show up and you try. You don't give up.
Yeah.
And you check in with yourself. And it when you do that, you and celebrate your wins, right? Like, I don't
Yes.
think we do that enough. We can
No.
celebrate those micro moments of success, and there's always something, right? I have a group on WhatsApp that we share our daily gratitudes. It's a sober community group, and it's just so nice to see the things that they're taking stock of and celebrating. So
Yeah.
I think that is some really
In
fantastic
business, it's
advice.
tough because, as a former salesperson, I live in that you're only as good as your last sale. And when we're the brand, we're like constantly working months, year ahead on things. So what's happening in the moment, it is truly hard for us to celebrate that. But I'm trying to get better as a leader to make sure the team, because not, I know my whole team does not think the way I do, where I'm like, okay, we did that next, right? We have to do better. Like that, and I don't want to do that to them because that's torturous. I torture myself most of the time. So like taking the moment, like we had our September 30th event, and it was great, and we're going to be able to give out 14 scholarships this year to Indigenous students. And we haven't even celebrated that yet because we have that event on September 30th and just have had October is gone, but we like had event after event, and then now like have more events, and it's Q4, which is the holiday season, which is the busiest. So I am just going to make sure that we take a moment when we get to January to celebrate that big win for us. Because that's last year we gave out 10, and we had a goal. We made a very aggressive goal for ourselves of 20, but we didn't make it. But the fact that we still get to give 14 is a huge deal. Yeah.
Well, that's just so wonderful to hear. And I would imagine that you will stay in touch with all of these amazing people that have your scholarships. And I know, having been with Women in Biz Network now for over 15 years, I just love seeing, and my students too, being a teacher, that's a pivot that I've done. So I teach as well, and seeing their success
Yeah.
is so gratifying. So you're like Oprah with her students.
Yeah, it is something so special, and that was like the original dream. That night I wrote to start a scholarship fund. Like I was always a fan. Like the whole idea was making this lip gloss, but most importantly was what we could do with a portion of the profits, right? And when we finally got to launch the scholarship fund in 2021, like that was a big moment, and we gave out our first scholarship to a young woman named Jody, and she's now a practicing lawyer in her community in Saskatchewan. And so, and her and I have a wonderful relationship. And so just knowing that we get to be a part of these people's lives in that way is a huge deal. Yeah. And I'm always like, in with Jody, I was like, what do you need? Do you need like, does she need connections to anyone or whatever? Like, that's all you want to be here to help in numerous ways. And it's not always just about the funding, but it's about the relationship, right? Yeah.
Mm.
But that's what, like, when you're a Cheekbone Beauty customer, or which we call our Cheekbone Beauty warriors, like, this is what you're being a part of. Like, every purchase is supporting that part of our mission. And I feel like what's not better to have like incredible products that are fun and good for you and the planet, and then knowing that you're a part of like supporting a community that like we know the power of education and how it can really transform and change lives. And so I feel it's just so good that we get to be the ones to be the vessel to carry this through for people too.
Yes, and that's the thing, right? It's one thing to give a scholarship, but it's another thing to mentor and to help help people through, those milestones. It's not just the money, it's sometimes you just need someone who's looking out for you, and it sounds like
Yeah,
that you've been able to do that. And our friend Helen Patterson, who's on this call too, from LifeWorks Well, she is a top mentoring voice for LinkedIn and does so much with mentorship and has been
that's so
an
cool.
integral part of women in business mentorship programs. So we really do believe in role models making a huge difference. Um, so you, as someone who has transitioned from sales and marketing background into beauty entrepreneurship, how do you feel that this has experience has influenced your leadership style?
The leadership part has been hard because when you're in sales, I was like always by myself, right? Like usually, and a good sales manager or director knows a good salesperson, and if they're good, just kind of lets them go do their thing. And that's what all of my bosses have always done for me, which is kind of a good sign about becoming an entrepreneur because that's you're just independent and you're always figuring things out. And so growing a team has probably been the hardest, most challenging part. Thankfully, after all of these years, the team we have right now is very small. We're 6 people and a few part-timers, and obviously some consultants and some support systems along the path in terms of agency work. But it's just the 6 of us, but they are the hardest working, like most dedicated people that believe in the mission as much as I do. And some days I'm like, if not more, right? Because you need that on the team, especially when it's such a small team. And this, I still feel like we're a startup, like we still have so much growing to do. And that was a challenge to get to this place, made a lot of wrong hiring decisions and not wrong in that they weren't right for the role or right for the organization, right? So we are very mission driven, and and you have to have people in a startup that really already know what they're doing. Unfortunately, we're not an organization that could hire a student new out of school. We definitely needed people that were experienced and well experienced to build things, like to build the product development R&D portion of our business, to build our operations, to build our finance department, and to build our marketing department. And so that has been hard, but we're in an excellent place now. But that will always be difficult and not easy. And especially with marketing, that's a role that it has to be ever changing. I feel, especially with creatives, like the people on that team doing specific roles are not they're not forever positions, because in creative spots you need to transition people often, and so that'll be always the tough one for me, because once I feel like, oh, we have this, then you can start to feel uh, the creative side of things failing once you're almost comfortable. So marketing is very interesting, where it always has to be uncomfortable. Yeah.
I teach marketing. I know it's uncomfortable. Yes.
Yeah.
And Pranav's one of my past students, so he knows that too. So, uh, uh, so how do you ensure your team at Cheekbone Beauty aligns with and furthers your mission and values as your company grows?
Yeah, so we're still small, so that it's been a little bit easier, but that has always been a worry as we get bigger. Like, will we get to maintain this company culture? We use the Anishinaabe Seven Grandfather teachings to like build the foundation of our core values, and so we break them into sort of 3 pillars of the core values at Cheekbone Beauty. And these teachings are like honestly basic values and principles for living: love, respect, humility, courage, um, and integrity, and which or honesty, but they're built into it. And so we always are speaking to them as part of who we become when we're at Cheekbone Beauty and who we're all trying to be. We all want to be these kind of people, but it's a conversation that we have regularly. And if someone's not aligning with those values, we don't want duplicity or any backbiting or those kinds of things. Like, because we're such a small team, it has to be. And communication is critical, when you have an issue, and really just bringing this idea of like, yeah, if we truly loved and respect on a principled level, this isn't like romantic version of love, but it's principled love. Like if we really care about the things we say, people and the planet, then we have to act this way inside the organization too. And the people that are there, they really do. And then we have this conversation with our partners, which is always more difficult because those are other organizations. But and they have to align with our values. We're a B Corp certified company, and so even the partnerships that we find on our path, they have to align with those values and have to be open to share supply chain. Ethics is something that's very important to us. We know a lot of production happens in places around the world where it's not the people. Unfortunately, it's the governments and the things that they allow to happen and what people are paid. And so we're all about fair trade, fair wages, all of those things. And so it's super important that our partners share that with us so that we can ensure that we are not using things like modern slavery, um,
Mhm.
children as workers and all those sorts of things that do happen in lots of other places. And it's something that it's a big deal because of course that's going to bring a less cost to a product, right? And we don't want to be a part of that. We're trying to make change.
What was the process to get B Corp certified like? Because it seems like it's quite an intensive, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it was a year and a half. Thankfully, we just were recertified, which was a lot faster, thank goodness. Because the first time around, took a year and a half for this process because you are vetting an entire supply chain, and so that is a really tough feat. And then we have our own heavy, sort of stringent um, processes that we're embedding into Cheekbone. So we do our own sustainability report every year. We're going deeper into the scopes every time we do this. One thing that I've been working on a lot of this past few months is just understanding carbon emissions, carbon renewal, all of these conversations and things you hear of plastic neutral, carbon neutral companies really discovering that they're not what they say they are, really, at the end of the day. And then humans notoriously want to figure out really just how to like incinerate plastic, I guess, right? And then the implications of that is horrific to our planet. And then no one's discussing the carbon emissions that come from that as well. And then there's also the side of like carbon renewal processes which are then going to add new issues. So it's this kind of like this thing that happens, um, and just being really transparent about it. That's what we do as a brand. Like, and we make decisions based on people and planet first before dollars. And so, but this is all part of it. And there's just an enormous amount of research that has to go into all of these things. I had never known in my life that I would know this much about these things, but I do now. And once you know something, you have to figure out how to do better, right? In the words of Maya Angelou, once you know better, you got to do better. And so that's the path that we've chosen to be on. There's no perfection in this. Like, this is a journey for us as imperfect humans and imperfect societies of trying to figure this mess out that we've gotten ourselves in.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Uh, so before we close the live stream portion of the event, Jen, are there any final words or advice for those watching who may be inspired to start their own purpose-driven business?
Yeah, I mean, like if this is if it's in there and you when it's that it's the there's that whole thing. There's feelings, there's emotion involved. And I just want people to pursue it and find and connect and do anything in your power because that's when you'd be passionate about it. I was always asked, how did you know that this was the thing? And in the early days, I remember meeting this group from New Zealand and they wanted me to come speak. And it was at like 3 in the morning because of the time change. And I did it without question. And it's not like I was being paid for it, right? And it was just, I was so passionate about sharing what we were doing and what we were working on. And those are the things. So, like, if you'll wake up in the middle of the night and do something that you're not getting paid for, you know you're passionate about it. And that's when you know that you're on the right path.
That's so true. So Jenn, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights, and your heart with us today. You've inspired all of us with how woven your purpose is into your business, showing that it is possible to grow and to create real impact while staying true to your roots and your values. So for everyone watching, Jenn's story is a powerful reminder for each of us that we have the potential to break barriers, to redefine what leadership is and what success looks like. Whether it's through innovation, sustainability, or representation, we can leave our mark. If today's episode sparked new ideas and gave you the push you need, let's take the next step together. Join the Changemaker Collective for free and unlock access to powerful resources, from a dynamic business directory and growth strategies to PR support and mentorship tailored for your journey. Visit thechangemakercollectiveco.com to sign up, and let's turn your vision into action.